The reason I actually started with Moms for Liberty itself was
Mhm.
because I had the fighter in me. I just didn't have the tools at that point. I didn't know my rights as a parent. Males have their own sports, female have their own sports, and then of course there are some co-ed teams, but that is a decision that those athletes make to
Yeah.
play with each other.
No, I can tell you, my wife used to be a teacher here in Florida.
Oh,
My
nice.
mother-in-law is still a high school math teacher for over 20 years here.
Wow.
And teachers want parents' involvement, because if it's not, then if parents aren't involved, the teacher becomes the parent, the educator, the disciplinarian. They may not be able to speak up against their bosses, but the parents, they can speak up, and they need that
Yep.
advocacy from the parents themselves.
They're doing everything on these screens, even math.
Oh, ChatGPT is answering every question in schools. I mean, I hear it
Right.
firsthand from all the teachers here.
Colleges will say to them, guys, stop teaching them math on screens.
Yeah.
There's a place for screens, don't get me wrong, but it's not every single thing.
This is just
Right.
about parents having oversight over their own children of what their
Right.
kids are being taught, be involved in that process and not just giving everything up to the state.
Welcome to the Carbonara for Congress podcast, where we address the real issues that affect the lives of people and families who live right here with us in South Florida.
I'm Michael Carbonara. On today's show, we have Alex Bougher. Alex is a leader on educating and empowering parents with the tools for parents to stand up for their rights, particularly in today's schools. And she's also a political commentator on Fox News and Newsmax. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Hey, welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited about being here today and, making education great again.
Yeah, I was hoping maybe you can kind of explain to us a bit of your journey. I
Sure.
looked at some of your things online, and to me, it sounds like you kind of got into this advocacy. Um, a lot how other people find their way into things is kind of by necessity when you kind of discover things on your own and say, hey, that doesn't sound right or it doesn't feel right, and you kind of did a deep dive and found yourself where you are today.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it probably starts back in the 90s. I don't look that old. No, for real. So when I was a teenager, I was definitely your typical rebel, didn't really get along with my parents. And thought I knew everything best, typical teenagers, right? And I got sent to boarding school. And, back in 1994, there was really no, let's say, massive like internet. We weren't sharing information the way that we share it today. And if you need to look
Hmm.
something up, there's probably a million Google reviews or whatever kind of reviews you're looking for. And so you would take someone's word for it. And you certainly took the school's word for it, counselor's word for it, because we've been brought up in an age where we just blindly trust these people. I'm not really sure why. Now we, I think, understand that that's maybe not a great idea. But back then, that's what we did. And so my parents just trusted that these people were going to kind of know how to deal with me better than they could. And I was sent away up to Maine in this school, a little different than normal boarding schools. You don't come home for Christmas, you don't come home for summer, you stay there until you graduate. So I was there from 14 to 18. And there was no way to tell my parents. There was no phone calls allowed. You couldn't talk to them. You couldn't use the phone. You couldn't go into the next room without
Wow.
asking permission. And so you really had to kind of get with the program, whether you actually believed it or not, so that you could earn some privileges to be able to talk to your parents. So my experience, going through a system that eventually got shut down when the internet actually did get big. And some of the ex students, we found each other on MySpace and Facebook, and we said, all right, we're going to take these guys down. And so when people would look up the school, we had it diverted to the site that was the Elan school survivor site. And we would tell them what actually happened in those schools. So, from the get go, when I had children, and I have three of them, I didn't blindly trust people. Like right away, those little antenna would go off and be like,
Sure.
I don't know about this. So that's kind of, what got me going, I guess you could say. Really COVID, when COVID came around and they wanted to mask my kids' beautiful faces, was when I was like, the antenna went back up again. And I was like,
Yeah.
something here's not right.
Yeah. I mean, I think we want to live in a high trust society, and for the longest time we do, and it's hard for good people to recognize or even to be on the lookout for evil or bad things. We assume that
Right.
everybody else is like us, and if we're doing good, then it must be everybody has the same intentions. And
Right.
unfortunately, just that's not the case. And while I believe in word of mouth is usually the best advocacy, but we need to do the old thing. We need to trust but verify now. And
Right.
unfortunately, yeah, I think COVID changed the perception for a lot of people, not just the schooling, but just censorship, the taking away of our basic freedoms in this country on a level that nobody even thought was possible. But especially
Mm,
kids. I had my first daughter kind of
mm,
towards the end of COVID, and in the beginning, we were terrified. It was like, oh my God, do I have to go to the hospital to give, my wife to have birth and all these different
right.
things and these shots and respirators. I mean, we didn't want to have her born in that environment. So we were considering all options because we didn't want my daughter's birth to be something that is so mechanical and cold and not family oriented.
Right.
So, I mean, fortunately, it eased up before her birth and we had a good experience. But
Good.
um, I think it caused a lot of long-term harmful effects, especially with the masks. I know a lot of kids had delayed speech issues, and a lot of
Sure.
kids, they were so, I don't know if it's a self-esteem issue, but a lack of confidence for sure, where
Sure.
even when the masks weren't even required, a lot of young kids were still wearing the mask for a year longer just because, it gave them a sense that they did, they were kind of hiding and they weren't at the center of
Mm,
attention and, they were afraid or just didn't want to have that confidence to speak up. And,
right.
it's unfortunate because it really, I think it's going to be a generational effect that we're going to see into adulthood.
We're definitely, well, we are, I was going to say, we're seeing the effects already. You brought up so many great points. My gosh, I'm not sure where to start. First of all, I think we need to start thinking outside the box. We always think of school as you have to send your kids to school, you have to do this, you have to do that. You don't have
Hmm.
to do anything. You are your own person. And when you become a parent, you are their parent. And it is your 100% God given right to decide what that child learns, what goes on their body, what goes in their body. Don't let anybody ever boss you around as a parent. I think that's the first thing that we need to kind of grasp as a society,
Hmm.
and that they don't have to go to traditional school. School systems were built for to create factory workers actually, and those workers that were already working needed babysitters, and so it worked at the time. That's not necessarily what we need today. And also, why are we raising our children that they have to work in this 9 to 5 workspace? They can be
Yeah.
their own bosses, they can think outside the box. So the same with the medical industry. We don't have to go to a hospital to give birth. I mean, yes, there are definitely some people that need to do that or want to do that. And again, that's a big thing. Is it's our right to choose. We're not telling anybody what they have to do, but there needs to be truth and transparency about what goes on in every situation. And with
Hmm.
schools, we're seeing that. My youngest child was born deaf, and luckily, throughout the years with surgery and different things, he does hear now. But
That's
at the
great.
time of COVID, he was hearing still about you know not 100% at that point, and he had massive speech issues. And so he was in speech and hearing. And so they were like, "Oh, he has to wear a mask." I'm like, "To go to speech and hearing, he has to wear a mask?"
Yeah,
And
it's defeats the purpose.
and the person teaching him has a mask on. He looks at
Yeah.
lips. Hello,
Yeah.
people. And so you just kept seeing these different things. But I definitely agree in terms of, kids losing confidence. A big thing that people will say is, oh, school gives them socialization. Are they getting socialization from school? They're told to sit down, be quiet, raise their hand, which doesn't always get called. So as it is, sometimes that kid, it doesn't feel very confident to begin with. And then you
Yeah.
had them hiding, right, behind this mask, which enabled them to not participate even more.
Yeah.
So, it really, the harm, we're not going to know for a really long time the extent of the harm, but we're definitely starting to see it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And, going back to what I was saying about um, being naturally trusting in other people to do the right thing, for the longest time, we've trusted in, the perceived authority, whether it's the school, that's the government, for so long to do the right thing. And we've done that for so long that we got to the point where the bureaucracy, whether it's the healthcare industry, whether it's education, really every aspect of government and life, where bureaucracy overrules common sense. And I think that we are starting to see that, like, the light bulb, like I said, is going off, that, kids don't need to do everything that they were supposed to be taught the way they were 20 years ago or with the mask.
Right.
And we're really seeing that where I am in the Florida's 25th district in Broward County is one of the, I would say, ground zero for the indoctrination ideology.
Yes.
And it's actually become a problem now because there's so many public school buildings that are now empty and being shut down because we had record numbers of attendance of parents pulling their kids out because they didn't agree with the bureaucracy anymore, and
Right.
it's making the school suffer. And unfortunately, we have great teachers. In Florida, the teachers are some of the lowest paid in the country,
Wow.
below a living wage. I think we're the third largest state, great economy, but the teacher pay is, I believe it's like 48th or 49th in the country.
Wow.
So it's really a backward system because it's not the teachers, it's the bureaucracies and the
Mm,
top-down uh, system in place because that controls what the teachers can do or what they can't do. And the teachers are hamstrung and they need the tools, they need flexibility. The parents need to know what's going on
sure.
because ultimately, you can also look at it as good and bad. Yes, things got shut down, but now we also have a huge homeschooling network here in Broward County, which is
Right.
great and it's thriving and it opens up different options for kids to learn because not every child learns the way, the school is structured. Sometimes
Correct.
they need different systems. I mean, me
Correct.
personally, I was terrible at school. It wasn't for me. I dropped out of college. It just, that structure didn't work for me.
Right.
Um, I feel like I've been successful in life, but I learned a different method than the traditional way I would say school teaches. So
Sure.
we need vocational schools, we need trade schools, we need
We need them all. We
nature,
need
we need
school
everything.
choice, right?
Exactly.
It's school choice. A parent knows their child's best, and they need to be able to work hand in hand in any environment that they're in. So whether they're homeschooling, they have a pod, they have a charter school, they, go to traditional school, they go to private school, whatever it is, parents need to be 100% involved because they're the ones who ultimately know their child the best and who
Mhm.
are going to want the best for their children. There are wonderful teachers out there. I have been saying this for years. They are not valued the way they should be, the right
Yeah.
teachers, right? And, a lot of times they're not even getting paid well. And then they're taking their own money to buy supplies for
Yeah.
kids. And we're spending a lot of money in tax money per child. So where is that going? Because it's I don't think it's going, to the
It's
schools. So
yeah.
but there needs to be more transparency. People need to know, well, if I'm, like you move to a certain town because the school district is great. You're like, this is great. I could send my kid to public school there. Yet they're hiding things from parents. They're not
Mhm.
involving parents. They're not putting the curriculum online or sharing it with them so they know what they're being taught. And if there is something that's not, appropriate for maybe that family's belief systems, they should be able to opt out. So
Yeah.
again, it's not about telling people what to do. It's about being honest and transparent and giving people the choice what's best for their families.
Yeah. Well, I'd say right now we talk about this affordability crisis in the country. Yeah, I usually have both parents that are working a job, sometimes two jobs. We used to be in a situation where only one parent had one job, and that was enough to cover the whole family and all the kids.
Yep.
We're stuck in this rat race. What would you recommend to a parent that just doesn't have the time and that's saying, that's expecting somebody else that, better at them at educating, they have to work all day and they rely and trust the schools to do a good job. How do you help somebody that is or guide them who just doesn't have the time because they're working to provide for
Right.
the family but they need to know what's going on? How do you balance that?
Sure. Well, the great thing at Moms for Liberty is that we enable parents by giving them the tools and we educate them what could be best for their family, right? So, not like you said, not everyone has that, ability to maybe have a parent stay home and homeschool. But I would say look at all your options and
Hmm.
look at your community because back then, right, when the dad worked, pretty much it was dads and
Yeah.
moms were home. There was also a community of moms, right? They all helped each other out and they all relied on one another. And that's something that I'm seeing we're going back to. right? So people are, hey, I'll carpool, or hey, we can homeschool. This parent takes it one day, this parent takes it another day. They're doing it, after work hours. They're getting more involved. If they're going to use the public school system, they're getting more involved. They're maybe running for the board of ed. A lot of people don't realize that, yes, that's a commitment, but it's not as time consuming as you think. And the meetings are after work hours. So you
Hmm.
can actually run for school board and be involved in the changes that you need to see in your school system. If that's something that you need to do, you need to keep your kid in the school system, well, then get involved, volunteer in that way. Run for town council. There's all these different positions out there that
Hmm.
actually are not that time consuming, that can have positive effects on your community and your school. So I would say, if you're going to stay in the school system, your traditional school system, that is the best way to do it. Forge relationships with people and also learn who the teachers are. I probably talk to my kids' teachers 2, 3 times a week. Emailing
Hmm.
them. How are the kids doing? What's going on? What are the projects? Let me see the curriculum. You have every right to ask these questions of your school district, the teachers, the principal, and everybody. And if they don't want to share those things with you, well, then reach out to us because that's when we get involved. And, we do this all the time. So we know that they have to show you these things. And we're
Hmm.
more than happy to help you draft an email or a letter, stating your rights and saying, hey, it's every right as a parent to see the curriculum. I have every right as a parent to be there during volunteer hours, so on and so forth. So a lot of the things, like the reason I actually started with Moms for Liberty itself was
Hmm.
because I had the fighter in me. I just didn't have the tools at that point. I didn't know my rights as a parent. And
Yeah.
that scared me. I had written this whole executive order because I said, well, my kids would like to go to school, but you're not going to mask them. And I looked at our governor at the time, Murphy's executive order, and I was able to find loopholes in there. So I wrote this whole letter and they said no. And I'm like, what do you mean, no? I found the loopholes. And
Yeah.
that's when I realized, okay, I need help. I need somebody on my side who knows the rules, the laws, that has those tools. And that's why I had started my chapter. But there's chapters in everywhere, in every state. So I always say, reach out to us. We will help you. And what's very important about that is we're not going to do the job for you. We're going to educate and empower you with those tools so that you can do it, because it's very important for parents to be the one in their child's life who is standing up for them.
Yeah. No, I think that's excellent. I think most people, they don't know, that they're maybe intimidated. They don't know the rules,
Yeah.
and it might seem more complex than it really is.
Mhm.
But really, it's just doing the work. But if you have an advocacy group that already knows the playing field, that knows how to access the system, I think it makes all the difference in the world, because nobody wants to be the lone person fighting against the big machine. It's
Right.
intimidating. You
It
know.
is intimidating, and some of us thrive on that, but
Yeah.
some people don't, right? So, I mean, we had, oh gosh, it was a few years ago. They were having a board of ed meeting about something. I don't remember. I think it was policy 5756, and which, if you're not unfamiliar with that policy, allows boys in the girls' bathrooms, and also is a policy of secret and lies here in New Jersey.
Okay.
Most of the states have it. It's just obviously called something else.
Right.
And basically, if a child wants to go by a different gender in school, the teachers are forced to keep it a secret instead of sharing it with a parent.
Oh, that's
So
terrible.
they were really scared to talk about it. So we sent a bus down of Moms for Liberty in their shirts. It was like 2021 or 22, something like that. And we said, don't worry, we'll send the bodies. And that gave them, the strength and
Yeah.
and the confidence to then speak up at their own board of ed meeting.
Yeah,
So
because it might seem like,
yeah,
well, is my idea even accurate? Because you need that
right.
validation from people that have done it before, and say,
Right.
hey, yeah, you are correct. You are doing the right thing, and you got to stand
Right.
up.
And
Yeah.
it helps, we have a parental rights coalition that we work with. So we all help each other, throughout
Hmm.
National Moms for Liberty, but also in the states, because states have different rules, right? They have different
Yeah.
policies, different laws. And so we have a coalition of lawyers that help us. So anytime we have a question, we shoot it to them. Hey guys, is this correct? Am I writing this the right way? Or, can you find any loopholes here for me? So that's really
Sure.
important too, because again, most of us, this is not our background. we could be a stay-at-home mom, we could be an esthetician, we could be a doctor, we could be an accountant. I mean, everyone comes from different backgrounds, so not everybody knows the laws. So it's great to
Yeah.
help each other out.
No, that's wonderful. And I can tell you, my wife used to be a teacher here in Florida.
Oh,
My
nice.
mother-in-law is still a high school math teacher for over 20 years here.
Wow.
And I can tell you, teachers want parents' involvement, because if it's not, then if the parents aren't involved, the teacher becomes the parent, the educator, the disciplinarian.
That's true.
And the more the parents are involved, it's better for the student and the child overall. And a lot of times, like I said earlier, a lot of times the teachers are hamstrung what they can actually do themselves. So they need parents involved, because they may not be able to speak up against their bosses, but the parents, they can speak up, and they need that
Yep.
advocacy from the parents themselves.
Yeah, and everybody has the same goals, and that goal is for that child to thrive and get a great education and to be a confident person as they get older, and go on to
Yeah.
bigger and better things. And we need to work together and not look at each other as, the enemy, or we're on the same team. We're on this kid's team. And so it's important to really work together, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you tell us some of the policies or the advocacy things that Moms for Liberty are focusing on right now?
Gosh, we have a lot of them. So, where to start? Well, Title IX obviously is a big one.
Yeah.
I feel like that one is so important because not only is it important to stand up for the rights of our young ladies and women, but it's also a safety concern, right? So
Yeah.
it's twofold, right? So number one, you have these young ladies and young women that are fighting their whole life. They're getting up early, they're working out, they're striving, they're being team members. Maybe their goal is to get a scholarship to a great college, or just be a great team captain, like whatever it is. And they're losing those opportunities because it is science that boys' bodies, males' bodies are built differently than female bodies,
Yeah.
and they're able to just hop into these sports and without usually much practice excel. And so now they're taking all these opportunities away from the ladies. But also, what about the safety aspect? We've seen amazing athletes get Peyton McNabb, for instance, right? Riley
Hmm.
Gaines. I mean, these are,
Yeah.
and they work closely with us. There's such wonderful women, strong women, and they were put in positions where they not only had to stand up for themselves, but then told they were wrong. Peyton got hurt. She will never be the athlete. She can't physically be that athlete ever again. And she was put in that position of forced to play with a male. And that's not right. Males have their own sports, female have their own sports. And then, of course, there are some co ed teams, but that is a decision that those athletes make to
Yeah.
play with each other, not, a male that's now on a female team. So, that is a massive one for us. President Trump signed the executive order last year that there are only two genders.
Yeah. I
and
mean, I can tell you, I have a
common
background in
sense.
genetics. I mean,
Okay.
I understand everybody can do their own thing. I have every respect for people to make their own choices. But at the end of the day, you have X and Y chromosomes, and that's it. That
Yes.
cannot be changed. You're two
Correct.
X's or an X and Y, and no matter what hormones are changing, or what you feel
Correct.
inside your body, what's in your mind, it's X and Y chromosomes. So
Correct.
my personal opinion, if you feel that you're not a man, or if you're something else, start something else. Don't make the
Yes.
women the victims here, because they didn't
Yes.
consent to that.
Correct. Well, we have said that, and we never lie to our children. You cannot be something that you were not born. If you were born a boy, you are a boy. If you're born a girl, you are a girl. That's it. No amount of putting on different outfits or makeup is ever going to change that. But that's true. I mean, if you would like to start some sort of league, go for it. But stop
Yeah,
taking those opportunities away from our young ladies. And what does that teach them? That's teaching them that the male's feelings, right, are more important than how they feel and their safety. And that
yeah.
is wrong,
It's
to
a total
teach them
loss of
that.
freedom. You're taking away
Correct.
the women's own freedom, really, because I mean, I believe you can do whatever you want. This is America. You're supposed to have their freedom, but when you take away the freedom, the access to scholarships, to access to grants for their universities,
Mhm.
and their safety, that's not freedom anymore. You're actually taking the
Right.
freedom away from those girls, and
Right.
it's unconstitutional.
And it goes against what Title IX is there for.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, when Biden's administration put those changes in place, we were like, you're literally doing the exact opposite of why we have Title IX. And so that's why we fought really hard for that. So I would say, right, that is just so important. We're going around, we're fighting basically school district by school
Hmm.
district, and finding the ones out that are not abiding by the executive order, and trying to, talk to them and say, hey,
Yeah.
listen, this is not right. And so that is definitely so important. We're dealing with that. We're dealing with some MAHA issues, school lunches,
Yeah.
extremely important.
Very
They're
important. I agree.
they're so important. We need to get to the core and
I,
stop medicating children for not sitting
yeah.
still.
I, it was, went to school in the 90s. I graduated high school in
Mhm.
2001. So I remember in the
Okay.
90s, um, nobody had ADD before. But then
Right.
what happened was the schools were incentivized. The more kids that the school doctor got on to Ritalin, they were making $300 per month per student. And so this is this is where bureaucracy overrides common sense. They were incentivized that if they had a kid that was, say, a disciplinary issue or couldn't behave well, rather than focusing on how to teach them properly or adjust to that student and how they learn, they medicated them and they profited off of it.
Right.
And
Well,
it's, I mean,
all comes down to money, unfortunately.
yeah, I like what Maha's doing. I think we need to really start, we need to have healthy bodies and healthy minds. And
Yes.
that starts with the food you eat.
Yes, 1,000%. We cannot expect children. They used to have the saying, right? Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. But
Hmm.
then you're setting them out with a Pop Tart. You're sending them out with sugary cereal.
Yeah.
And then these kids get yelled at and disciplined for not sitting still. Their body is
Yeah.
crashing.
Yeah. I know. I
Yeah.
kind of, the other week, my 3.5-year-old, she had a little bit of chocolate. It was kind of late at night. I'm like, oh my God, the sugar. And then half hour later, of course, she's bouncing off the walls. But I
Yep.
can't yell at her because she had, I knew she ate the chocolate. So
Right,
it's not her
right,
fault. But
right.
it's common sense. Like you got to think about these things. What are we feeding our kids? What
Hmm.
drugs are they taking? What pharmaceutical
Right,
drugs are they taking? Because these all
right.
have effects, not only on the behavior, but on their overall development throughout life.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, we want healthy bodies, healthy minds, and we want them to feel good about themselves. Mood swings is something massive that we're seeing as well, especially with the young ladies, of a certain age.
Hmm.
And, we're seeing their confidence levels sort of drop at the same time. And this will bring in a whole nother thing that we're dealing with, not just MAHA in terms of being healthy and having that right as a parent to say, no, you're not going to feed my child these things at school. We
Yeah.
need better options, but also the screens that they're given at school, and how that opens up to them using different apps that now a lot of people don't realize this, but 65% of trafficking of children starts on school grounds. And it's either from a
Wow.
child that's being currently trafficked or an
That's
app that
unbelievable.
they're using. It's unbelievable. But who's giving them these screens? The schools are, you know, and they're doing everything on these screens, even math. So 22% of 12th
Yeah.
graders in our nation are proficient in math, 35% in English.
Oh, ChatGPT is answering every question in schools. I mean, I hear it
Right,
firsthand from all the teachers here. The
right,
students are using ChatGPT for
right.
everything, basic
Yep,
math. 2 plus
yep.
2, ChatGPT answers it.
Colleges don't, I mean, colleges will say to them, guys, stop teaching them math on screens. There's a
Yeah.
there's a place for screens, don't get me wrong, but it's not every single thing. And
You need to learn the
handwriting.
fundamentals. You
Right,
need to learn the basics, the foundations, everything. But
right,
I mean, screens are obviously important. Technology is important. That's our future. That's our economy. It's what, we're in a technological society. You need to understand
right.
these things, but you need to learn the basic fundamentals of English
Right.
and history and
Kindergartners don't
math.
need screens.
Yeah. No,
Preschoolers, kindergartners,
no,
first,
unless they're
second, third
teaching you
grade.
to
Come on.
code.
Right. Yeah, you have like a mini genius and they're coding. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But that's like in some AP class or something. I don't know. But, yes. I mean, it's like anything in moderation, right?
Yeah.
Everything, if there's too much of anything, it is what it is. It's too much. Everything should be in moderation. There's a reason why kids excelled in kindergarten and first grade back in the day when I was in school. It's because they
Hmm.
focused on basic math and basic reading. And
Yeah.
they didn't move on to other subjects until they had those, they were really strong in those. And then they could, second, third grade, they started to move on to other things. Now they're having French and Spanish in kindergarten. Not even one language, by the way, combined language. So you have kids that can't even, read
Wow.
English, right? And they're doing this. So I just think, I don't know, we just need to
Well,
go back to the basics in
how,
general.
how is this happening? Is this federal level policies down? Is it state level policies, or is it
It's
the local
both.
school?
I mean, it's both.
Yeah.
You're really starting to see both. Definitely the state has a lot more to it. It's funny when Trump said that education was going to go back to the states. Some of us were like, because we live in states, right?
Yeah.
Some of us live in very blue states, and so for us, no, we need the federal guidance because they're not doing the right things in our states for our kids. They're putting boys and girls bathrooms. They're giving them screens. They're pushing
Yeah.
LGB plus, and I could go on with the pluses, curriculum. And that's what they're putting as the priority
Yeah.
over anything else. And
Well,
every
that's
state
why
is.
everybody was pulled out of Broward schools, exactly for that reason.
Yes. Yeah, you guys, it's funny. Everyone always thinks Florida's the free state, right? And I'm like, I don't know, guys. I hear stories coming out of Broward.
Well,
you
yeah,
know,
that's why I'm running now to do something about it.
we need, yes.
We're
And
going to
with
turn
that,
Broward red.
and that, good. We're going to turn them red. We're going to turn everybody red. We have to. Our children are at stake. Our future is at stake. A lot of people think they're like, oh, that's crazy. It's not so crazy. No, 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 it is, because the children are our future.
Yeah.
And if you indoctrinate them into this like woke ideology and then they're not educated academically, what is it going to look like in 10 or 15 years from now? Because you're already starting to see it with the 20-year-olds, right? Because it
Yeah.
started to sort of creep in. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what is it going to be like? So it's really, really scary. But I do think that parents are starting to wake up, and they're
Hmm.
starting to sort of take their families back and their children back,
Yeah.
and they're starting to get involved,
Well, this
right?
really, they should be, and this isn't a Republican or Democrat issue. This is just about
Right,
parents having oversight over their own children, of what their
right.
kids are being taught, and being able to be involved in that process, and not
Mhm.
just giving everything up to the state. Because when you give it
Right.
up, then you have no idea what's going on. You have no transparency.
Hmm.
And the fact, you're talking about that there's things that, certain states, that teachers are by law not required to even tell the parents of certain things. I mean, to me, that is just, I, I can't think of anything worse.
It's
I mean,
crazy.
that's
Well,
that's not
people,
America.
it's not America. Like, for an example, when Trump signed the executive order, no boys and girls sports, there's only two genders, everyone was like, yes. But we would say, yeah, but guys, it really falls back to the states now.
Yeah.
So if the state has a policy that allows it, they don't technically have to listen, they'll just lose funding. So that's what people don't realize. Like, for instance, in New Jersey, schools don't technically have to listen to that executive order because they have their own policies or laws, right?
Right.
But if we report them, they can then lose the funding. We can say, hey, listen, they're not listening to this executive order. And like President Trump said, okay, we're going to pull your funding then. And he
Hmm.
doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to take things away from schools, but the schools and the state, they're not doing the right things. So something
Hmm.
has to happen, to ensure the safety of all of our children. I mean,
But I
if you
guess,
look, yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
I guess the message is then is to prevent those situations from happening. Is it really comes down to parent involvement, because they're the
Yes.
first ones to ring the alarm when something's off.
Yes. Yes, definitely. I mean, again, I think I don't want to judge any parent. I grew up that way too, like just to blindly trust. But now we know better. Maybe 10 years ago we didn't
Yeah.
realize it, but now we do. So now you as a parent, right, has that decision to make. Do I just drop my kid off and let them, teach them and do and everything, right? And this way I
Hmm.
can work and be here. Or at the end of my work day, I'm going to make sure I'm involved and not
Yeah.
just say, hey, how was your day? But ask them specific questions, know what's going on in school, have that relationship with the school and the teacher to know that maybe there was a big project coming up, or, hey, maybe they're having a fight with a friend in school. When you open those lines of communication, you'll have the right questions to ask your kids.
Yeah.
And then your child feels seen too. Like, oh, you know this about me? Okay, I could talk to my parent about this. And they feel good about it as well. But parents have to be involved. If you look at what's going on right now with the walkouts, for instance, at school, you drop your kid off, you're supposed to feel safe. Like, okay, my kid's going to be there from 8:30 to 3 and they're in good hands, they're safe.
Yeah.
And then you see on the news that your kid just ran across a crazy highway in an ICE protest. You're like, what's happening here? How come they're not in school? And a
Yeah.
lot of parents, that's a wake up call for them because they're like, "Wait, is this allowed? Who pushed this? Was the kid's idea? Are the teachers pushing this?" So, if you have a relationship with what's going on in school and your school, you're probably going to know the answer to that. And you'd be able to stop that from happening beforehand. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll tell you right away. We happen to have, great school system in our town. I emailed the principals of our town and I said, "Hey, I want to make sure that this will not be a teacher led rally. The kids have every right. They have First Amendment rights, free speech before school, after school, on the weekends, but not during instructional hours. And it
Yeah.
certainly should not be teacher led."
No, absolutely. And that's also taxpayers funding that essentially. So if you're wasting and abusing that money when it's just supposed to be teaching the kids,
They are
you know,
supposed to be teaching the kids, but I think it's important to listen to kids too, because a lot of times kids feel that they're not heard and they have
yeah.
a voice as well and they're learning as well. So a lot of people will say, well, they shouldn't be rallying over that. Listen, they're kids. They have every right to
Oh,
use their
every
voice.
child, every that's some bleeding hearts. Like they're the most passionate people when it comes to any social
Yes,
issues. It's
they
the high school
are.
kids, it's the college kids.
Yep.
They have so much passion. They want, they want the world to be a beautiful, friendly, peaceful place, and
Hmm.
they're the most vocal about it because
Yep.
they
And they want to be heard. And so I think
exactly.
that's really important is, to maybe not be all of us like staring at our computers or our phones, but listening to them and having that
Mhm.
open discussion with them. And if that's something they want to do, help them realize the right, safe way to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I've seen protests even with 5-year-olds picketing on the highway. That's not even exaggeration, and it's
No,
just
I believe it because my kids were at anti-mask rallies, so I get it.
yeah. Um, so how could you say like how can people help Moms for Liberty? You guys have been making huge progress. I mean, I see you here in Florida being very active as well.
Yep.
What's the best way for people to get involved with Moms for Liberty? Maybe support Moms for Liberty and some of the initiatives.
We have so many things coming up. We have some fundraisers coming up at Ellis Island, USS Midway on the
Hmm.
West Coast. Those are great, ways to get involved. You can come meet a lot of us, get involved with the event, talk to us in person. It's a fundraiser. We
Okay.
are mostly volunteers. So fundraisers are a wonderful way to help us because, again, most of us do work regular jobs and then afterwards we are helping people write emails. We're going to a million board of ed meetings to help people out. We're traveling to our state capital to talk to our legislators. Most of our states have legislative teams, and
Hmm.
we help to raise concerns about bills that are being brought your way or help write bills to help our
Yeah.
families and constituents of our state. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on. If you don't belong to a local chapter already, the best thing to do is go to momsforliberty.org. We have a fun little map of the US on there. You find your state, and you'll either find a chapter in your county or a nearby county that you can join, or you could start your own chapter, which is absolutely wonderful. And again, it's funny when we started this 5 years ago. I mean, it was amazing and we had the tools and we were helping each other. But now, 5 years in, we're pretty good at it. So we
Well,
know
yeah.
kind of what we're doing now. So we're able to really help everybody in any way that they need. We're extremely mission focused. It
Okay.
is about parental rights. It is about protecting the kids. But we do have this coalition that we work with other organizations as well. So even if it's something that we ourselves maybe can't get involved in, we can point you in the right direction. So I think that that's really important too, because once people see you, doing great things and being successful, they want you to help in a million other ways, and we
Yeah.
want to help. But what makes us successful is that we are extremely mission focused. So definitely joining a chapter, starting a chapter is great. If you're an organization or a company that would love to back us, reaching out to national in any way that you can would be wonderful as well.
That's great. And especially now, like you said, Trump gave the rights back to the states. So
That's
that
right.
means you have 50 times the work now. You have a huge workload
We
and you have a lot
do.
of, uphill battles, I'm sure.
Yes.
But you've had a lot of success already, and the organization really knows what it's doing. So I really
Yes.
wish you guys the best of luck. You have my
Thank you.
support, and I'll
Yeah,
support
everyone's
any way I
very
can.
passionate. So,
Well, especially when you have kids. I have two young daughters.
yep,
They're not quite, school age yet, but we're thinking about that, and
yep,
we thought, well, let's prepare for homeschooling if it's not up to par where we feel
yep.
comfortable.
Well, that's a great point that you just made too. And I would love to reiterate that is that you don't have to be even a current parent. If you're thinking about becoming a parent, you want to think about what kind of education you want for your child or, the upbringing of their child. And we have a ton of grandparents too, because they typically are retired, have more time on their hands. The
Yeah,
parents are working. So we have so many of them. And also they came from a different generation. So
yeah.
they don't understand what's happening right now and they want to help change it.
No, that's terrific. Yeah, you need the grandparents' involvement too. I mean,
You-
I don't know what I would do without grandparents' involvement. It's very much needed. It's part of the whole process of having a family.
Yeah, it totally is. And again, it goes back to community and
Hmm.
just helping each other out, see something, say something. I didn't just I mean, yeah, I guess I got into to save my kids, right? But I
Hmm.
wanted to then save every kid. It's not just about my kids. My kids have good parents. We stand up for them. We don't let anything happen to them. We make sure we
Yeah,
protect them. But there's a ton of kids out there that don't have that or parents want to, they just don't have the tools. So we're
yeah.
in it for all the kids. We want to make sure that they all have their rights and they're all protected.
No, that's wonderful. You need that support,
And we
that
need people
base.
like you to run so that
Thank
it
you.
can happen.
Well, but we're gonna run. We're gonna win, and we're gonna
Yes.
continue helping everyone that needs help, and especially
Awesome.
kids. So thank you so much. You guys
Thank
had such a
you.
wonderful success, and thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thanks, Alex.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed today's show. It's available on replay, so click the like and subscribe button and forward it around to your friends. Let them get involved too. Remember, to really make your voice heard, you need to vote. Click the link below or scan the QR code to request a vote by mail ballot. Your vote can really make a difference. Thanks again, everyone.